my dissertation dealt with the issue of equity and the tools that faculty use in order to become more aware of equity issues. And so what I've done is I've divided my presentation into two parts. The first part will be data that has come out from a statewide a report that looked at cohort data statewide throughout the community college system about basically our students' completion rates. In full disclosure, this report was produced by the Institute of Policy and Higher Education through CSU Sacramento, and it was done through a think tank that, think tank is the Campaign for Community, for College Opportunity. And Eloy Oakley is one of the members of the executive board of that organization. Not that he actually produced this report, but it was a collaboration between the two. So, you know, if you'd like to take your lunch and walk out, you're welcome to. But the data is very clear in just kind of what's happening statewide throughout the community college system. For those of you in the back row, the data may be really small on the screen, so you have that, please share. This organization has set a goal of trying to get 1 more million graduates before 2015 out of our community college systems. And if you look at how we've been structured or compared to other countries, we are not performing with graduation rates with those who are between 24 and 45 the way that other countries are. So we have Korea that we can compare ourselves to, or Canada. And what we're really looking at is this information about the red line and the blue line, or the green line, because that's the younger those are the younger ones that we're seeing that we should have a graduation rate. And in other, you know, kind of first world countries, Korea, Canada, Japan, New Zealand, those are actually where they're showing the most growth, and we're showing a decline on a national level and as well in a state level. Okay? And so California is actually performing a little bit lower than that throughout the nation, and we have the biggest community college system in the nation, if not the world. There is no other place where you have over 100 community colleges within one geographic area. So this is kind of where the big picture comes from in looking at, because we have the largest community college system, and 73% of students who are in college in California are undergrads. And we have the most diverse population as well. And if you really break down the information, and you would love to fall asleep reading my dissertation, you're welcome to find out that community college, we have the most diverse student population. The UCs are not quite as diverse. The CSUs are kind of a mid-level diverse, and we have the most diverse student population. And as we look at these, if you have a question about what some of the oh goodness.
Data?
Not the data, but, well, you can ask questions about the data. But some of the abbreviations are, okay, API is for Asian Pacific Islanders. Okay, so it's not an API score for school. It's actually, it's a racial group. Here at Long Beach City College, we have a very unique population because our Asian population includes many of those who are from Southeast Asia, and those students test differently than those who are from what are considered stronger first world nation, like Japan, Korea, and China. And it tends to be connected strongly to their history, their modern history within the last 50 years. So we're going to get into the report a little bit. On a grand scale, painting the picture of basically why things are bad or ugly, completion rates within community colleges within the community college system throughout the state is at about 30% for completing the program. 23% for transfer. But for certain groups, underrepresented minorities, which is UMN, the rates for both blacks and Latinos are much lower for both completion and for transfer. And this is consistent. Okay? When we look at how students are completing the road to completion itself, whether they're doing milestones about completing a certain amount of units. So they're looking specifically at, have they done 12 units in a semester? Have they completed 30 units within a year or two? Have they been able to complete their math, English, reading requirements, met those requirements, okay? Versus more of a completion of they have a certificate, they have a degree, or they have transferred. We find that just students aren't persisting. They aren't continuing on in the way that we envisioned that we would love for that to happen. Okay. When you further disaggregate the data and you really begin to look at the racial groups of making and achieving these milestones and completing these issues, it begins to be even more dire. Okay? With this, we're going to look specifically at the red bar and the green bars, which are the last two bars in each area. And we find that consistently, students who are not completing the college level 30 units or more and transfer curriculums, those students that are in African American or Black and Latino racial groups are consistently not performing at the levels that their other students in other racial groups are. And the completion rates are also pretty dire. Okay? So when Mary asked me specifically to title this presentation, I was just like, well, there's good, but there's a lot of bad and there's a lot of ugly. And this is really that bad and that ugly element. It's just that when you really look at the huge, huge picture about, what can we actually do with the situation. And I think part of it is connected to the fact that we have a very diverse student population because of the community that we live in. So with this, in looking at students who are degree seekers and completers, we have that specifically, the most glaring data is that the Latinos are a third of the population that are seeking a degree, but they're only a quarter of the students who actually complete. And we are a Hispanic serving institution. We have a student population at about 43% that are Latino. And so for them to be at that rate of we want to complete, but they're not completing. It's in their heart, it's in their mind that they would like to have this goal, but how they're getting there and what barriers exist may not be, we don't understand what is that disconnect and how are these students not being served. Okay? In looking specifically at issues of curriculum or earning an associate's degree, kind of the bad picture continues to be bad, where they're not completing transfer curriculum, they're not completing associate degrees. But if they do transfer, Latinos and Blacks are more likely to go to a for-profit institution. They are not transferring to UCs and they are not transferring to CSUs at the same rate that other racial groups are. And so that kind of paints a picture for us because we know, since we are within that system, we know that they're being targeted and we know the types of outcomes and success stories that exist there as well and the problems that students get into with that.
So why? Why is that happening?
I think that's the question. The question is for us to ask that question, for us to sit down and ask that question of ourselves. The concern I think that I have is that me as one individual, one faculty member out of hundreds, I have the information, I have the anecdotal of, I think it happens because of this. But it's different for every student. What the barriers are different for every student. So how can we, as faculty, drive the conversation? And so I know that in some circles, being able to talk about, well, let's remove some of the barriers that students run into. And Promise Pathways as a program is working towards that, and there's a very strong effort, and it's a very expensive program. There's a lot of labor and time and energy given to that. And in many ways, there are some very innovative tools that are being provided, but it's only to a small cohort. It's about 1,000 students a year. We have 33,000 students. So how do we, as faculty, drive that conversation? So for us to sit in the room together and say, well, what did you experience? What kind of problems have your students had? I think part of it is reaching out to students who have left your classes. Why? Why is that? You know, is it a work schedule? Is it the fact that the textbook's too expensive? Is it, you know, what is it that is putting that barrier for students? Is it childcare? You know, what is it that our students are just not reaching? How are we not reaching our students? Still keeping the academic quality and standard that we should, because that is our charge, but reaching our students in a particular way. And my dissertation focused on reaching the students in a specific way, using the syllabus as a tool to make that introduction. Okay? So in wrapping up just kind of the bad groom report, the racial gaps continue, especially with successful enrollment patterns, with students finishing English classes, math classes within a first few years. Okay? Now, this think tank produced a certain amount of suggestions of what should you be looking at. You should be looking at things like a second-term retention rate, second-year retention rates. We know that we lose a lot of college students within the first year. Why is that? How can we outreach to those students? Looking at them completing 12 units, how long does that take, and how quickly can that, you know, happen? Looking at college credits, and then also looking just at their enrollment patterns. And so we can talk about these things, because these are the things that we can have an impact on. But what I'd like to do, and if you have questions, I can provide you the contact information for this think tank so you can get this information, or I can send you this report. I truncated it just a little bit, simply because just of time consideration. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk briefly about my dissertation. And the analogy I would have to use with this is, as big as that conversation is, think of that as like a space shuttle, how large that actually is. It's multi-stories, it's huge, there's a lot of moving parts to it. And my dissertation looked at one nut in one screw of that entire conversation. You know, so it's a very large conversation. There's a lot of answers. There's a lot of people who could work on this in a lot of different ways. I looked at a very, very tiny part of that. And what I looked at specifically is I went to a community college here in Southern California, very similar to LBCC. It was not LBCC. I called it Dynamic Community College. And they had been working on these issues. They had been working specifically on equity issues. And they had contracted to work with the University of Southern California's Center for Urban Education, CUE. Now, Long Beach City College has worked with CUE in the past. And a couple of you have worked on those projects, specifically the Equity for All project that we completed back in 2006. Here's the lovely report. Here's the report for the Missing 87. What happened after this is we found out that we had 87 students who were ready to transfer who never did. So this report was, go find those 87 students and find out, why didn't you transfer? And one of the answers was, we didn't have a transfer center at the time. So we established a transfer center. But the transfer center still to this day only has one counselor devoted to it 100%. Ruben just sent out an email earlier today. But if we want to target transfer, why are we not putting more energy towards that? So, I mean, if you look at our history, this is kind of where, and then following these two reports, we did a different project with the Center for Urban Education. And in this project, this institution focused specifically on the syllabus. And what happens in your class on the very first day, and what tone do you set as a faculty member of, hi, I'm here, I'm approachable, I want you to be a success. And I was part of this report, and I was kind of a lab rat for USC, and they looked at me, and I know that Lisa was also, you know, she was interviewed as well about how their tool of reflecting on a syllabus, whether that was your own syllabus or from a different discipline or from a different faculty member, how approachable is that document? How much does it tell the students that you are important to me? we consider it very important. It's the first piece of paper we develop and that we hand to them. We consider it a contract. But do the students understand that as well? And so that's really what this report was about. And since this time, back in 2008, the Center for Urban Education has refined that tool, and they've added to it, and they've developed it even further to understand the ways in which your biases, just as an individual walking around every day, may actually present a barrier to students to where they may have that opinion the very first day of, I'm not going to be successful, so I'm not going to persist. I'm not going to continue in this class. And that's really what this study was about. Okay?
Can you elaborate on that a bit? On the notion of bias as an element of, I guess, our posture?
It may not be a physical posturing. We may have a bias of that you're expecting students to have, to be ready and to study, you know, a specific type of history because you teach history. You're also, you should have these expectations about they should have this amount of reading level, they should be expecting this. But if your syllabus is incredibly authoritative, that may actually set some students off. That there's a lot of will nots, should nots, you know, and maybe, you know, downplaying the tone a little bit and being a little bit more approachable in the language that you use within your syllabus may actually help the students understand of, wow, he wants me to be here and he wants me to be a success, you know. One of the things that I did back a few years ago was I made sure that within my syllabus I included the success centers that we have. Okay, this is the contact information, this is where you find it. You know, here's my contact information. We always have that very first page of this is who I am and this is my office hours and how to contact me. But later in it, you know, and you have to understand, I kill trees with my syllabus. Okay? But it's about making sure that the students know that I'm there. I would love for them to be a success. Please reach out to me to have that as well.
What do you think about the idea of not giving them a paper syllabus, but just having something online?
That would work as well. But part of it is how approachable is it? Okay, and I've seen different syllabuses, you know, or syllabi. Some people are just the facts. It's the one-page, single-sided. It's very tiny. It's hard to read, and you know, it's making it more of a document that's easy to read. May be really, really helpful. Okay, but for you, you know, you have online students and finding
it. All my classes are web enhanced. I never handle it, or try not.
I'm making up for that difference. The other thing that I wanted to talk briefly about was the fact that with the ARC data that we have been producing over the last few years, the state is holding us accountable for our retention rates and our persistence and completion rates. And this really does come through something that's happening in education as a whole that's been developing since the 80s. In the 80s, the K-12 system lost the flexibility to really oversee themselves. And so that's where all of the testing has come in through the K-12 system. This is our way of still maintaining our academic freedom using our own developed academic or accountability measures, specifically SLOs, completion rates, persistence rates as well. Okay, and so this was putting together that information and really looking at that issue. In providing this information, really the problem that I was looking at is that because underrepresented students tend not to achieve, okay, and for whatever reason, I really want to look at that last paragraph. I was trying to understand if a tool specific to how is your syllabus structured, and before you leave, I can actually show you the handout that was used in the study, okay? But how is it designed to address how the impact it would have on practitioners, faculty. And I was looking at a specific group, which was brand new, full-time faculty at a community college. This was their first year at a community college. Now you have to understand that I was using a couple of frameworks as any dissertation would use, and I was specifically using cultural historical activity theory and institutional theory, which really goes into what is the culture at an organization and why is it the way that it is? Why do the practices that exist there exist in that way? Because if you go to a different college, the cultural practices may be a little bit different for whatever reason. I also, because this did deal with issues in regards to race, I looked at critical race theory. I was also looking at culturally responsive pedagogies and sociocultural communication, which is in what ways do people in their interactions actually communicate, these are the values of our culture and this is how you do and be successful in our culture. Okay. I had 3 research questions. I wanted to know, one, does the tool itself, which was the syllabus, this piece of paper, or not so much a piece of paper, but this this measurement of, you know, you're being asked a series of questions looking at a syllabus, you know, and you're kind of evaluating your syllabus. What are the characteristics of the tool itself, you know? And I also wanted to know about the changes in the practitioner's beliefs. Did they change in their beliefs? Did their attitudes change because of the tool that they had used? They had not been exposed to the tool prior, and they had not been exposed to other tools that were similar to this. And in what ways did it actually associate any kind of change within the culture, meaning not just one person, but the culture overall for the faculty? So I used a mixed method approach where I looked at both quantitative data and qualitative data, specifically they all did surveys. Those were quantitative data that I developed, but I also did personal interviews in talking them through these issues and then pulled out pieces of information or key statements that they made through our interview process. Okay. The findings that I had was that this tool provided a lot of empowerment to faculty. This is something, a syllabus is something that we are often handed when we enter into this profession. We're never taught how to write one. And so for a brand new faculty member to be given a syllabus and to say, really think about your syllabus. And it really empowered the faculty, and consistently they provided that information back. But the cohesive group of a brand new cohort of faculty, you know, I think there were 17 of them all at the same time, they all had different values, they all had different assignments, and so they really didn't have shared goals. Not every one of the faculty members used syllabi. Some of them were in counseling, and they didn't teach a counseling course. Some of them, so they didn't value this. Not everyone had the same value because not everyone needed this tool. You know, it's almost like they've been handed a hammer and they're like, well, I don't need a hammer, so they put it down. One of the key findings was to match the right tool, and there were other tools available through the Center for Urban Education, but they weren't presented with it for this study. Okay, so presenting the right tool and the resources, specifically time and space, to the right group. So really matching the right tool to the right group was important in this study. One of the things that I had in this study was that there was a doctoral student in the same program who had gone to this institution a year before me, and she had worked with a group of veteran faculty. She was very successful in the way that they changed their culture and that they reflected upon their syllabi. My study was actually showed that there wasn't an impact. You know, it was very fractured. With 1 or 2 individuals, it was impactful to a certain degree. But one of the findings that we had was that new faculty specifically they show up to the meetings because they're told to show up to the meetings. They're still under tenure review. And they don't understand the culture of the community as well. They haven't been here long enough to know why we do what we do. And so for them, it was, I'm going to show up to this training, and whatever someone's talking, I'm just going to pay attention, you know? But for them to actually find that meaningful and purposeful it didn't occur in the study that I completed. And so I was doing a comparison to a prior study where it was very successful, and it did have a great number of adopters. In regards to just recommendations, it really talks about having collaborative groups that really represent a broad base, but they have a shared goal. They really want to address the same issue. And one of the things that's going to happen at this college is that we have our Board of Trustees mission statement includes the vocabulary of seeking equity, as well as our educational master plan has a goal of seeking equity. And so one of the things that will be happening in the near future is setting up equity teams by school and having our faculty meet and discuss the issues of equity and how can we be more purposeful in understanding our students and making sure that those barriers don't exist. Okay? All right. One of the other things is to talk about, have just kind of a statewide conversation to obtain insight for others. The practices that work from someone else may actually be successful here, or they may not. So actually going out and seeing what is being used in another location. Okay? Hiring faculty who actually understand the institutional goals and will move them forward. You know, rather than hiring someone who doesn't understand what the mission of the college is. But for the Center for Urban Education, the Center for Urban Education, what I recommended was making sure that they were able to ensure the full application of the tool. In my study, they did not. They said, well, this is a great tool. Well, this is a group that we have. Let's put them together. And it actually didn't work for that. And then making sure that the facilitator, who is an active researcher, actually leads that conversation. You know, because they're the ones who are helping to guide those who are practitioners out in the area to making sure that effort is not wasted. As in my study, that's what I kind of found. So in summary, what I found was that through professional development, that tools like this can help faculty see a tool that they use all the time in a new light, but you really have to be purposeful in who you choose to have that conversation and how you have that conversation. So that's it.
Do we have a relationship with Q now that there's a facilitator that we're in touch with?
We do. I think the problem we've had, and we've had this conversation in Senate, is that we have had Q come out and work with us 3 different times, and every time they leave and they finish their report, our conversation dissipates. And it's a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's interesting. And I did enjoy many parts of my part of, I was part of the last report, which is the benchmarking report. But the fact is that part of me also felt like I was a little lab rat. I was being studied, and I wanted to move something further along personally. And I think it comes down to us as practitioners. How important is this for us to address without anyone else telling us we should address it?
Well, I think we have a golden opportunity because we're hiring 40-some-odd faculty this year.
We are.
Why not use them as a cohort to expose them to these kinds of possibilities?
It would be wonderful to expose them to that. The concern that I would have as someone who has saw it fail was that they don't understand us enough to know why we do what we do. And so it's really for us to select teams that are strong with those of us who know the culture, who know who we are as an institution, why we have made the choices we've made. That's key to really having some success. And it really comes down to those who have had leadership positions or are in leadership positions, and then peppering the new faculty into that. But if we take the cohort of 38 brand new faculty and we say, go do this, they're going to do it because they're not tenured. They're going to do it because they're told to. And there is a different mindset during that time.
Are we working on any kind of mentoring program where we connect the leaders, the kind of professionals that have experience and know the mission and the goals with the new faculty? I mean, that would be a great
We can. And we do have a mentoring committee through FPD. But whether or not the mentors are informed about that and then can lead that. Kirsten.
Going back to the first part of your presentation, has there been any effort or any way we can kind of assess the boundaries that you specifically mentioned, the lack of success rates of African American students and the Latino population at this college? There must be some shared issues within those populations that they're not succeeding
Efforts here at the college, I don't believe so. You know, but for us to actually ask those questions and, you know, okay, great, we're going to take the worst performing group and we're going to identify it. And the thing is that the Center for Urban Education is very clear. They only look at race and ethnicity. They don't look at that and gender, or they don't look at that and income level. You know, we could combine that combination. We want to look at African American males. Let's study those for a year and see what we can do to that group, or find a different group, you know, of we want this information. But I think part of it comes down to how much information we get from the applications.
I was just going to mention that one thing we're doing differently for probation students this semester is if they're on probation 1, they have to complete, we tell them it's required documentation, but in reality it's a survey gizmo, and they're having to say why they got on probation. And it may give us some interesting information. So far, 488 students have completed it, so it's a decent sized sample. But I'm just thinking we could, you know, these are students that are going to get, you know, that are on either academic or progress probation, and at least it's our students, and they mark, you know, we have a whole list of things that they identify, but at least it's quantitative data.
Yeah.
And out of that, maybe we can do something with that. And I have to go run and do a workshop for the ones on probation too now, because they have to come in person.
A true practitioner. So and I think that's where it comes down to, is us thinking about this, us asking the questions like Lynn, which is, what do we do about it? Well, what do we do about it? There are so many things we could do. It really is, you know, part of it is closing our eyes, but throwing that dart and hitting a part of the dartboard or even not the wall and saying, okay, we're going to try this for a year, and we're going to see where that leads. And that's really where you know, that strength of faculty can come into, that we're not being directed by anyone else, but we can say, as a group, we want to know the answers to this. They may lead us in a direction we don't know, but let's at least find out.
So you said the community college where you did some of your research was very similar to LVCC. Were they doing anything that seemed to be beneficial to the groups of students that weren't persisting or, you know, showing success?
What I did is that the study that happened before mine, they had just had a year. But the faculty that had really adopted this, I really want to look at my syllabus. And one of the faculty was very clear. He says, I used to have a one-page syllabus, and it was single-sided. You know, it was tiny print. He says, I now have a multiple-page syllabus. It provides a lot of information to my students. And I've shared that information with my department, the faculty in my department. And so some faculty had made changes to their syllabi as well. That was one measure, you know, one way of an impact that it could have. They had also self-developed workshops within their own organization of, we want to do this and we want to focus on this topic before it actually became important. And part of it just comes down to timeliness. When do we actually sit down and talk about a syllabus? Well, you know, probably the end of the semester, but you're not going to use it for another few weeks. So are we going to get you in to do professional development a week before or 3 weeks before? Because when do you print it? Not that you're printing. You're not printing. You know, and so finding the time and basically that moment where it can click of it actually is the right time for the right topic for it to work. Margaret?
I wish I knew everyone better, because I want to speak. I mean, when we see those charts and we go, wow, why aren't Black people, Latinos succeeding? I mean, I just want to say, wow, okay, I want to design things, but can we talk about how do we handle forces that are huge, that are national, international, long, historical, enduring, racism, sexism, classism. I mean, these are the stories they talk about in their low-level English classes. We know what is hindering. I did a paper this last October with a former student who talked about microaggressions in the Chicano community that prevent Chicanas from going into STEM. You know, okay, there's forces pushing against you when you're coming in that are huge, and then there's a force that can pull you as the promise of a job in STEM or something. I see myself now as a STEM feeder to give people more hope, but not that hope dope that University of Phoenix is passing out, you know, where they say, oh, let's fast track it. I mean, sorry, I'm not supposed to say a name, like those, I mean, but those for-profit schools that you're talking about, the reason people of color gravitate to that, because those schools wrongfully promise it'll be quicker, it'll be faster. I worry about us devising systems here that say, let's do it quicker and faster. You know, quicker and faster, with the blinders on to historical forces that are really hindrances. I'm trying to give my students carrots, like STEM, like right here, robotics, or now we got GIS mapping, or like a promise, like come here 2 years, pick up some computer skills, get good at English, study history, just get in and stay, and you will get a job. I mean, I think they need some hope, and that's what they offer, but not so much hope that we're blind to historical forces that are real. You know, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what we're supposed to do when the economy, the global economy, is just cobbling people at the knees. Everybody's poor now. My student's dropping out. Like another student wants to be a doctor. He's got like a second job. Her mom ran off with a boyfriend. I mean, the problems are economic, you know, and they have these big dreams, and I just want to take her in my house. I mean, but short of doing that, how do we put that in a syllabus? How do you let them know, I know, and this is something that America hasn't stopped, these negative forces America hasn't stopped. How am I in my syllabus? I really, you know, I feel like I know what some of the reasons are, but what can I really do to stop racism and sexism and microaggression? What can I really do?
Well, and I think that I mean, those are wonderful comments, you know, for us to be able to have and to have that conversation, for us to take that journey is important. For us, we've made those efforts sometimes. Some faculty are anti-textbook because of it's not so much, you know, the textbook itself, it's the cost of it. It's another barrier on top of everything else that our students don't need. And so maybe we make an effort towards making sure that we have digital textbooks, that we provide that. Or that, you know, not that this is a very popular idea amongst faculty, but with the classes those 4 or 5 classes that we had for the winter intersession, those students received scholarships for that. And Eloy was able to work through and make sure that there was scholarship funding for students to enroll in the full price of the class. And so why aren't we doing that for the rest of the student body? Can it be done? Yes. If enough minds and energy get put forward to a subject, it might actually happen, that we might be able to take that. You know, the reason why the first semester of the Promise Pathways cohorts is free is because there is a foundation scholarship that exists for that was developed through, I would imagine, some money that faculty contributed to that. Why aren't we going out to the community and asking for that as well? You know? So it's developing what are those barriers, having that list and having that huge, huge list, and then saying, well, what are we going to actually target and go for it? And it really is a list that we can continue to go back to and cycle through and to really analyze what are we going to address and how are we going to get there as an organization. Do we really want to focus on, we have one group that we really love to be able to go into STEM programs or more into the arts program. What do we actually value as an organization? All right, well, thank you for your time and your attention. I am honored.